to another episode of Tatum Talks with Kelvin Tatum. I'm Ian Brannan, and we're here to chat largely in this episode about the Speedway Grand Prix series, which gets underway at the end of April in Croatia, but another packed programme of fixtures ahead and some changes to the lineup as well. And joining me is Kelvin Tatum, the voice of the commentary of Grand Prix Speedway, but also British Speedway as well. And first of all, Kelvin, we'll start where we left off, because our previous episode, if people haven't heard that yet, or maybe they have seen it, you were previewing the British Premiership season, and already I'm looking down some of your predictions here, and I'm going to be asking for the lottery numbers very soon, because you said Christoph Kasperzak would he be consistent, or would he be all or nothing? Your hunch was he'll be all or nothing, and well, his scorecard reads 2, 0 and 15. So I think we can tick that one off as a win.
Sure. Kasperzak, obviously, he's one of those guys who's mercurial, but highly talented, but it doesn't surprise me at all, those first three meetings. And Bellevue, I think you were going to be chatting about Bellevue, about their middle order, maybe?
Yes, when we said Bellevue, you said you were unsure about their middle order. Some riders need to step up to the plate. And actually, in actual fact, maybe the surprise has been Dan Bewley's taken a bit of time to get his engines fully in tune. He's running on new engines for the UK that are not the same bikes. People are saying, how come he can ride like this in Poland but not like this in Britain? Because they're different engines and different bikes. That's as simple as that. So he's still got to get things nailed there. And the other point, of course, was Peterborough. You asked, can they rely on Nicky Pedersen? Will he be there come the end of the season? He wasn't there come the end of the first race.
I know that is quite disappointing and quite surprising. The reasons that Nicky gave for actually withdrawing from British Speedway, he would have known prior to even signing the contract. So I know that Nicky, I'm sure, came in with all the best of intentions to do a fine job for the Peterborough Panthers, but I think within less than half a lap, I think when he found himself upside down and feeling a bit uncomfortable up against the safety fence at the showground, clearly he's reflected on that. And that's desperately disappointing, and it's quite a kick in the teeth for the Panthers at such an early stage. But they're going to have to recover. You know, after such a disappointing season last year, Rob Lyon and the management there are going to have to find somebody to replace him. But far from ideal, that, Ian, actually. And I'm sure that the fans for the Panthers are, I would say disappointed, and I think that's probably underplaying it.
And the problem now for Peterborough is finding a number one, that there are no number ones available because they're all tied up. The best riders are all tied up somewhere. The ones that maybe could do it that aren't riding in this country are tied up in the Grand Prix or have got international commitments, and it's logistically not very easy to find a rider of the same quality. I mean, there's maybe one name being rumoured at the moment. Maybe Matej Zagar is one rider who we might talk about shortly, because he's going to be riding in the Croatian GP as a wild card. Maybe he might be in the market for some laps. He's maybe the one rider of that quality that might fit the bill and potentially be available.
Well, yeah, absolutely. He's an obvious choice because he has plenty of British experience. He's an experienced campaigner himself. I believe he's 40 years of age now, but very fit, still keen to do a good job. I think he would be a decent replacement. In some regard, maybe a better replacement, because he's been riding in Britain recently. He rode well for Bellevue, of course, last year in their championship campaign. So, they need that. There's no doubt about the Panthers need it. The fans want it. They'll demand it, having had Dad's Army win the championship and then you're going from heroes to zero last year. They need to, and there'll be a lot of pressure on the management to move quickly now to sign somebody that can just calm the nerves of everybody around there, because there'll be a lot of doom and gloom about that decision. So fingers crossed that they can get a decent signing in.
Okay, Kelvin, the $1 million question, the question that's been asked most online about this British Speedway season is this: when does the Eurosport coverage start? That is it. You're the man that can answer this.
We will be starting on May the 22nd at Leicester against Sheffield. It's late, surprisingly late, but once we do start, Ian, we will be 3 weeks on, 1 week off. There will be continuity. I think the thinking behind this late start was the fact that we were going to try and not to have too many breaks. Have a couple, then almost a month without a league match. So we're looking to have 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and try and finish the season by the end of September. Weather permitting, of course. But May the 22nd, people, that's the date. And hopefully we won't let you down.
Yeah, weather permitting is always the thing, and that has been a hazard with the British Speedway season so far. But Leicester versus Sheffield, the first fixture on Eurosport, May 22nd. You heard it from Kelvin himself, but you'll be on the TV before that because 29th of April, the Grand Prix season gets underway, and you'll be packing your bags soon enough, Kelvin, for a trip to Croatia.
Yeah, off to Zagreb at the end of next week. Looking forward to it. It was where it all started last year, of course, after not being there for a decade. It ended up being a really good Grand Prix. Nice venue, not a big venue, a small venue, but a neat and tidy place. Track performed well. Schmarslik got his campaign off to a flying start. So looking forward to going back and excited about the 2023 campaign. It seems an age ago that it was all wrapped up in Torren last year, but as I say, not too much longer to go. Less than 2 weeks now before we get the championship, the SGP campaign underway.
And another packed calendar, of course, for British viewers. Then got to wait until September this time. 2nd of September, the date at Cardiff. But otherwise, a very familiar-looking lineup. And in and among later in the season, we'll have the Speedway World Cup as well at Wroclaw. So there's lots to look forward to out and about through the course of this season. But we're going to focus on the Speedway Grand Prix this time. I'm sure we'll talk about the World Cup in more detail nearer the time. Looking at the lineup, a very familiar look to it, and some of the riders that are coming back in are riders that have got experience in the Grand Prix series. I don't think anybody's got any major complaints about the wild cards that were thought of for this year as well. But starting with the man that everybody's got to beat, I think, Bartosz Schmarslik, 3-time world champion now. He wants to break the all-time record over the course of his career. Of course, he's not going to do that just yet, but he's really the man to beat, isn't he? He was so much faster than everybody else last season. If anybody's seen him in action pre-season, he's not been unbeaten, but not far off it. Certainly performed when he's been required, and he started off his extra-liga life with Lublin at the weekend with a 15-point maximum. So he certainly looks like, if anything, from what I've seen of Schmarslik early season, he looks like he's even faster, which is bad news for the rest of the lineup.
Well, I can't disagree with you, Ian. I think that he's come out, firing on all cylinders. There's no question that his preparations for this season must have gone very smoothly. He's changed clubs. That was a huge decision. He's a Gorzów boy. It was his boyhood club. It was a massive decision. Quite a shock, I think, to the Speedway world that he moved away from Gorzów. He's gone to Lublin, which are clearly very ambitious and are looking strong. They've got 2 world champions, actually, in their team. Of course, they've got Matthias Sierniak in there, the under-21, or the SGP2 world champion as well. But Schmarslik, he is looking ominous. And it's almost like that performance at the weekend, Ian. It's like he's thrown down the gauntlet. He's come out firing on all cylinders, and he's looking red hot. I think last year's campaign must have been strange because Artem Laguta, the world champion, was not in it because obviously we know why. He was the red hot favourite. Everybody was just saying, oh, he's going to do it. And I think mentally, I think it may have just unsettled him a little bit because he was kind of flat. He was just doing enough until Bewley won 2 GPs. But Schmarslik coming into 23, he has to be the man to beat. Has to be.
And it's really the question, the big $1 million question is not so much who's going to win the Speedway Grand Prix series, I think, in 2023. It's who's going to stop Schmarslik. I think that's the big thing because obviously he's by far the favourite. But who's going to be number 2 and number 3 sort of chasing after behind him?
Yeah, absolutely. Leon Madsen, world number 2. He has, we'll hear from Leon from the press launch in Wrocław recently, but there's no doubt that Leon will fancy his chances. He has a lot of self-confidence. If Leon is fit, he's fast. Whether he's good enough to beat Bartosz Zmarzlik, I'm not sure about that. I think Zmarzlik is a slightly better rider. But Leon, as I say, has incredible speed at times, which can, when he only got beaten by 2 points previously when Bartosz Zmarzlik just pipped him, that season he was just stunningly quick. If he can recapture that, then he'll go very close. I think Tai Woffinden, Ian. Tai Woffinden is a rider that clearly knows how to do it. He's done it 3 times. It's been quiet. Hasn't won a Grand Prix since 2018. Upset at the end of last year. And will go on, but has made some significant changes. He is one that I believe will be stronger this year. And so far, early season suggests that he's in good form. After that, it's difficult. I think, for me, Freddie Lindgren is an understated guy. He's a rider that is, no question, capable of being in the top 3. And if Freddie is healthy this year, he's had long COVID. If he's shaken that off, then I would expect Freddie to be very consistent. Maybe Jason Doyle also, if he can recapture the 2017 form.
Well, let's have a listen to what a few of those riders have had to say and pick through it. And we'll start with Leon Madsen. This was the press launch, which was held at Wrocław a couple of weeks ago. The riders were brought out, and journalists, both present and remotely, were asking questions. So in some of these clips, you'll hear the journalist ask the questions. Some you won't. Here is Leon Madsen, though. He was asked about what he's going to bring to the Grand Prix this year, and his plans to challenge Bartosz Zmarzlik and be Zmarzlik's biggest opponent in 2023.
Like I said, there's a lot of good guys in the GP. That's the 15 best in the world, and they are all here for a reason, and that's because they are very good. And so I really can't. You can't focus on everybody else. You have to focus on yourself, and that's what I'm doing. And like I said, also at the moment the preseason is going very well. We feel good. We feel confident. For the first time in a long time, I trust in my equipment and in my team. So going into the first round with a good confidence compared to last season, it feels very good.
Okay, so Leon Madsen there, confident as ever, and he feels that he can be Bartosz Zmarzlik's greatest opponent this year. And we know he's got the talent and he's got the capability, but perhaps sometimes consistency has maybe been his biggest enemy.
Yeah, I think the year when he came really close, obviously he's world number 2 in 2022, but he's been world number 2 before. And he only went down by 2 points that year, and he had some stunning performances. He went through the card, on more than one occasion. If he can recapture that speed, I think it's 2019, that's off the top of my head. And he's had some injury issues. It sounds from, what he's talking there, when he was talking there on the audio, that he's fit. And that is important. He's had back issues that certainly have been difficult for him. Yeah, he will have his highlights. My feelings about Leon Madsen, if you give him fast, slick, perfectly prepared tracks, he's a winner. He is a winner. He's proven winner. When the tracks maybe like Teto last year, if you get some difficult conditions, it's rough, it's bumpy, I think Bartosz Zmarzlik has the advantage. I think he's a slightly better all-round motorcycle rider. But as I say, there's no guarantees of either of those things happening. But I do know that if Leon's fit, and that the tie-up with Brian Carger that he had at the end of last year, and that keeps developing, then as I say, he's a very good package, and he's in his 30s, he's experienced. There's no reason why he can't go very close. And of course, he won the European Championship last year. He's a winner. He knows how to do it. So, and that confidence is well founded, because it comes from a place where he has won Grand Prix. He's got close. So, yeah, I'm expecting a strong campaign from him.
Let's talk about Tai Woffinden now as well, because obviously he's not had a perfect season in the last couple of years in the Grand Prix. Certainly struggled to live up to his highs of winning the 3 world titles that he's got to his name so far. This year feels like a different year. I know, speaking to some Polish journalists, and they've seen him in action there already, they feel that actually he's back, and he's made some big changes. We're going to hear from him in a sec, but these changes, he's set his stall out from the back end of last year, and the plan is to get right back to the top again. And certainly in Poland, they feel that Tai Woffinden could be the biggest challenger for Schmarzlik. Let's hear Woffy himself now talking about those changes that he's made for this year.
From September last year, we started to make some changes. So we sold the house in Poland, we moved out, we mixed up the team a little bit, got rid of a few staff that I wasn't happy with. Bit of riding in Australia, signed a contract in Sweden, so I'm racing an extra day in the week. So from September last year, every day, every minute, every hour has been focused on this year, and I'm ready to get into it. Look, the last few years for me have been tough because I've come off the back of 3 huge injuries. It all started in 2019 when I broke my back and my shoulder blade. Then the year after, I broke my foot twice and finished with a broken hand, had an operation with 2 KYs in my metatarsus in my hand. And then the year after, I was having a good season, good start to the season, everything like normal, and then crashed in Grosjeans and smashed all the ligaments in my shoulder, which took me about a month and a half to get right. So, then I crashed at Manchester and broke my femur and my tibia. So the last year, the previous years have been tough from that aspect and not being on the bike all the time. But as far as like knowing if you're going to have a good year, as long as you're fit, healthy, you got good nutrition, good hydration, and your engines are fast, like that's all it is, man. Like and like for me personally, like I know what I'm capable of. I know that I can be top 3 in the world every year. Last year was tough because I started the season with 1 engine tuner and then changed engine tuner. So there was a whole 6-month period of rocking up to a Grand Prix and riding a brand new engine and trying to figure it out on the night because I didn't have time to test. So we're way ahead of all that stuff now. That's all. We've had a full year of testing. I know what I want from the engine. My engine tuner knows what I want, what I'm looking for. We've done a lot of research and development this year on the bikes. So I've got a fair bit of stuff that we've been testing, and it's I'm excited, man. Like I'm really looking forward to this year. There's a lot of people that have been talking shit about me, and I'm ready to prove more wrong.
So Tai Woffinden there, and he also mentioned in that he moved over to Poland to make life sort of easier for himself there, I think. But I think he's now thought about that, and actually he's missed the home life, the familiarity of living in certainly an English-speaking country, were his words.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that family life obviously suffered. Without going into too much detail, it's not just Tai. He's got, a family. He's got children, and I think that if you've got a happy, settled family life, then that can help you mentally. And clearly, that's something that Tai has decided that they need. Going back to Australia, I think will be of great benefit to all of them. Tai grew up in Australia and loves it there, and I'm sure once he retires he'll move back permanently. But I think a few months with his son on his back, away from it all, being able to just reflect on it, they are fundamental changes to the way you live your life. So these are significant, and at times actions speak louder than words, and that's encouraging, certainly from a British perspective. He's a proven winner. He has 3 world championships. If he stays out of trouble, doesn't get hurt, and he's keen, then, as I say, I've seen Tai Woffinden do extraordinary things, and he's every bit as good as Bartosz Schmarzlik. And it's very interesting that the Poles believe that he is the main man to challenge Bartosz Schmarzlik from his early season form. I hope that's right, because nothing will give me greater pleasure, Ian, to be shouting and hollering about Tai winning Grand Prix again, because he hasn't won since 2018, and it's long overdue, and I'm sure he's very keen to rectify that.
And as he mentioned as well, though, those injuries have set him back. He's had some quite big injuries that, whilst the bone may heal, everything else that allows you to race the bike hasn't healed. And sometimes you need surgery to put that right. And you have that surgery, it takes a little while for things to to fully get back to full strength, doesn't it? And now he feels like he's fully fit, which is something he's not been probably able to say for quite a while, and that's a big difference performing at the top level as he is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. You know, he had that Grigory Laguta run him off the track and broke his back. You know, that was a nasty one. Obviously, previously to that, he had his shoulder issues. He's had plenty of injuries. For a guy that rides the bike so well, he's been unlucky. You know, I think Smarslik's been fortunate. You know, he hasn't been hurt. But Tai fully fit, refocused, happy family, back in the UK. Clearly, there's a hunger in him. You know, he saw Dan Bewley win Cardiff last year. He hasn't won there. He saw Dan Bewley win in Wrocław, which is Tai's home club as well in Poland. He hasn't won there. I think that might just have sparked something in him. And as I say, for the Grand Prix campaign, for everybody, if you've got a highly motivated Tai Woffinden in there strutting his stuff like we know he can, like he did in 13, 15 and 18, then it's going to spice this World Championship up big time.
And there have been questions about whether, you know, his focus on Speedway, because Ty's been busy doing lots of stuff. He's been talking about boxing matches. He's been DJing in nightclubs. He's got a single available for people to download. He's really spreading that. You know, he's branching out in different areas, and so as a result of that, there have been questions about his commitment to Speedway and how important actually it is to him at this stage in life. And we'll have a listen to this.
Music, boxing, or Speedway? What is Tai Woffinden greatest love today? Do you still have motivation to fight for fourth world title?
Tell me your opinion. Do you think I would be sat here right now if I didn't want to be world champion? What's your opinion on that? Of course I want to be world champion. Of course I love Speedway. My life is the sport, everything I know. But I have a platform that I can use to do other things, make other money, do other stuff, have fun with stuff. So I'm living my life to the way that I want to live it.
I think you can consider that question answered there, Kelv.
Yeah. Love it. Obviously, that just touched a nerve there, didn't it? Quite clearly, he didn't really appreciate that. Yeah, he's a maverick. You know, he's not your typical world champion. He's not Bartosz Smarslik. Smarslik lives and breathes Speedway. I don't know what his hobbies are. He might play golf. He might just spend time with his family. I don't know. But no question that Tai doesn't fit the normal mould. I remember when he turned up at the Speedway World Cup in Manchester in a three-piece suit. You know, I haven't seen these
That would have been something.
Yeah, I haven't seen many Speedway riders turn up in a suit to go racing for probably since the 50s. But no, so he is slightly unusual. But I think aside from all of that, I think if he finds the right balance with all of his outside interests, and as I say, what he said there in that audio, he's made some big decisions, and there's no doubting his talent. It's proven. If he can get close to that again, then he'll be in the championship chase.
While we're on the subject of Woffie, let's talk about the other Brits in the lineup as well, because not forgetting we have now, for the first time in I don't know how long, 3 British riders who have, you know, really got a chance, because Dan Bewley and Robert Lambert both finished inside the top 6 as well. Tremendous position for British Speedway to be in, to have 3 top riders now that we know have got a chance of fighting and not just taking part in the Grand Prix series, but, you know, as serious contenders for winning individual rounds and maybe getting somewhere in the overall title race as well. Robert Lambert, first of all, obviously he's got his way into the Grand Prix as a result of winning the European Championships, but of course has qualified on merit since then and seems to be, you know, kicking on year, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, it is. He's he's coming along very nicely, and particularly at the back end of last season, he really did look like he was going to manage to win a Grand Prix. His consistency was impressive, and there's no doubt that he's a hugely talented rider. And he's 25 years of age now. He's maturing nicely. I think the next step for him is to replicate what Dan Bewley did last year by winning a Grand Prix. I think once you win a Grand Prix, you have the belief. And I'm expecting a really strong season from Robert Lambert. Highly talented rider. He's at the right age. He's fit. He's focused. I'm expecting big things. I'm excited about all three, and I think Robert Lambert finishing 5th in the world last year, I think he's gained a lot from that. And I would say that he'll go into Croatia at the end of next week. I think he'll be excited about it. He won't be feeling intimidated. I think at the beginning of last year's campaign, he was I sensed he was a bit tight on the bike. He was a bit conservative. And at the end of the year, he sort of like wrestled those shackles off and started really expressing himself on the track. And I don't see any reason why he can't start like he finished last year. And if he does, then he'll be right in the thick of it.
And also Dan Bewley, who found himself in the regular Grand Prix series at fairly short notice with this Cumbrian guy, and he's found himself in the mix at what happened with the Russians. Sayfutdinov and Laguta found themselves out, and it was Jack Holder, of course, the other one, and Dan Bewley found themselves with that call very short notice. You're in the Grand Prix series. They were the reserves for the series, the first two reserves, so shouldn't be an entire surprise, but to be in the full series like that, and then to deliver what he delivered, winning a couple of Grand Prix, including winning Cardiff, of course, which, in itself a huge achievement for any rider, but for Dan, he's lived the dream of what many British riders aim at. Tai Woffinden has tried, and he's never cracked the Cardiff nut yet. Only two riders have, in Chris Harris and Dan Bewley, and going in there without that fear, really, and just enjoying the experience.
Yeah, he did. They had everything to gain and nothing to lose. They were the two substitute riders, Holder and Bewley. Bewley clearly had a fabulous campaign. Just ran out of steam at the end. I think after winning the two Grand Prix, I think the focus on him was just extraordinary. He really was the story of the Grand Prix. Schmarzlik was going along fairly comfortably. Bewley then upped his game and won two back-to-back Grand Prix. Schmarzlik then turned it on. But for Bewley himself, I think it was extraordinary. I think there's no doubt that he has a fantastic amount of natural ability. He's a great guy. I remember talking to Steve Lawson fairly recently about the day after he won in Cardiff. He was riding motocross. He stopped on the way home at a motocross track and was just out practicing on motocross. The guy just loves being on motorbikes, and he's just got that great enthusiasm to ride. If he can retain that, I think it's a question that people will ask. If he can retain that sort of happy-go-lucky attitude with not too much pressure getting on him, then he'll have another strong campaign. He started slowly in England, but as you said at the top of this podcast, that there's been some new engines that maybe need just tweaking a bit. Performances over last weekend in Pardubice and in the Extraliga were strong, good performances. So I don't have any qualms about him. I think he'll be a strong contender. He's such a fast rider, Ian. Look at the qualifying times. He didn't seem to be even trying, and he just used to get right at the top of qualifying. He has a natural ability, a feel on the bike where he can just allow it to run fast. So yeah, I'm excited about all three. It's as you said, as you rightly say, it's exciting times for British Speedway with three genuine world-class riders in the lineup.
It was pretty cool, but at the same time, I just tried to move on. I went motocrossing the next day. I celebrated that night, but we had the Swedish League on Tuesday and then back in Poland on the weekend. So that Speedway, we don't have much time to take it in. We got to get back to work. So it was cool, but there was a lot of interest in England, but we got to quickly move on.
Yeah, that was him talking about, keeping cool after winning the Grand Prix. As you mentioned there, going off motocrossing and got on with the job. And, it's a good attitude to have as well, isn't it? Many riders say that sometimes the pressure you can mount on you if you let it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that time and time again. The pressures of being in the Grand Prix can be relentless, and particularly if it's not going well. And then the flip side of that, of course, when you have such a huge success, I've got to remind ourselves that final in Cardiff was his first final. You know, he managed to make, on his home Grand Prix, he gets in the final the first time, boom, wins it. Incredible. Just a sensational performance. And then comes out the very next Grand Prix, scrapes in the semi-finals, and guess what? Boom, wins again. So, you know, this was like just staggering and just shocked the Speedway world at the time. So he does seem to have a character in him that is, and he seems very determined to keep things on a level that he can enjoy it. And I think if he manages to do that, then I think that Dan Bewley is a future world champion.
Speaking of world champions, Jason Doyle is one such rider who perhaps, in his own words, as we'll hear in just a sec, has found the pressure of being the man to beat sometimes something that weighs you down a little bit. Here he is talking about the biggest changes that he's experienced since his debut. He first came into the Grand Prix series in 2015, had a couple of good years and of course won it in 2017, but then since then found life a little bit harder. Here he is, Doyle, talking about that.
I've had many changes the last 7 years and 8 years now in the Grand Prix. I think the Speedway, it's such a simple sport, but we've complicated it the last couple of years. So I think when I first come into the Grand Prix, you don't have any expectations. The pressure is only coming from yourself. So I guess when you win a world title, then you've got your doubters, and also you then have to keep up to being that top rider. So the last few years I've really struggled with trying to be that number one rider, and I think the biggest thing was I just try to keep chasing speed and different engine tuners. So I'm going back to basics now. So my biggest changes are our engines. So I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, and he's got a new engine tuner now that he's been using, I think, since the back end of last year. And he also said further to that he's sticking with the same engine tuner come what may through the season.
Yeah, I think that's wise. I think that sometimes when you chop and change throughout the year, it's very difficult. You're always having to, get used to something slightly different with different characteristics. You can't maybe trust the way the bike's going to react when you go to the start line. And when you keep bolting in different engines, the continuity of going from track to track and understanding and being completely at one with your bike is not there. So I think that makes sound sense to me. I think Jason Doyle has worked extremely hard. He just came up short on the Australian title, didn't he? He won 3 rounds and Jack Holder just pipped him to the title, but clearly rode well. Did a lot of pre-season testing. He's riding well again for Ipswich, which is. He's got a new club in Poland. He's going to be a busy guy. He's a grafter. Is Jason Doyle, not work shy at all. So I just hope that he can. What he was saying there on the audio, that he can do it, because he's a tremendously exciting rider. He's a world champion, and so. I'd like to think that it was almost like in recent years, Ian, he's been trying too hard, and I think if he can just relax a bit and take the pressure off himself a bit, I think we may well see the best of him once again.
Of course, he's not alone, with company from Australia as well, with Jack Holder and Max Frick also representing the Aussies in the Grand Prix series. And both of those riders have got something to prove as well, I think. Jack Holder looking to kick on from last year. Max Frick, I think in his own words, looking for a bit more consistency from his season as well. But again, 2 very quick riders who on their day are capable of at least getting on podiums.
Yeah, well, Frick won a Grand Prix. He won in the Narodovi and Warsaw. I mean, it was an incredible performance from Frick, and I think everybody, including himself, I'm pretty sure, thought he would kick on from there. Unfortunately, in the Grand Prix series, it actually was a little disappointing in the end. He just couldn't recapture that sort of spark he had in Poland on that wonderful night. He was pretty solid in the Speedway of Nations alongside Jack Holder. Excuse me, get rid of that. But there's no doubt that Frick is a terrifically talented rider. And I think if he can just find a way of being able to have the motivation and focus to ride at that high level on a more regular basis, then he'll have a good campaign. I think the same applies to Jack Holder. I think he was outstanding in the Speedway of Nations final for Australia. He was their leader, and there's no doubt that if he can find that sort of form in the Grand Prix on a regular basis, then he will be certainly a top six runner. I think he needs to just take that next step where he can get into a final or two and really start proving himself at the GP level. But the Speedway of Nations performance suggests to me that he's got the ability and he's got the talent to be able to have a good campaign. You know, good start. Get off to a good start in Croatia, and that'll settle him down nicely, I think.
Who else have we got then? Let's talk about Kim Nilsen. Here's a rider that you know very well, Kelvin, because I'm sure, as you mentioned, you managed him at Lakeside when he rode in British Speedway. He got through the GP Challenge, which was at Glasgow back last August, I think it was. Well, here he is talking about heading into the Grand Prix.
To progress as much as possible during the year. I think it's a lot to learn, but also I think I can progress with that, you know, as a rider and as a person. So yeah, I see it possible to grow as a person and rider through the year and become something really good at the end of the year.
So that's his aims, really, to just grow and progress. No pressure on Kim Nilsen. Comes in into the Grand Prix as a regular, and it's up to him now, isn't it? He can make a real impression and try and get himself into that top six, which of course will be very difficult. But if you don't do that, at least put on a good show and give yourself a chance of a wild card for the following year.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim's a really intelligent lad. He's been a slow burner, you know, he's probably around early 30s now. He's been on the periphery of Grand Prix, he's been a wild card previously on 2 or 3 occasions. He's shown glimpses of being able to compete at the very highest level. There's no doubt that people were not talking about him as a Grand Prix qualifier going to Glasgow last year. I don't think that a lot of people mentioned his name, and he surprised everybody by putting on a fantastic display up there in Scotland and to cruise through to being a permanent Grand Prix rider in 23. So Kim Nilsen, what I will say is that it's going to be tough. I think riding at that higher level on a regular basis is the biggest thing the biggest challenge he's going to find. It's harder than riding at league level mentally. That's the biggest challenge. And Kim will have to raise his game every fortnight or whenever they come. And if he can get off to a reasonable start and get some points on the board and not allow the Grand Prix to get on top of him, where he's dreading the Grand Prix rather than looking forward to them, then I think he will have a good campaign. You know, we looked at Oliver Berntsson, you know, the Grand Prix when he was in it, it got on top of him. You could see it. It was a long, almost torturous season for him, and you felt for him in the end. I don't want that to happen to Kim Nilsen because I like him. He's a good bloke. But the fact of the matter is that he is an older guy. He's a grown up. He's a mature man. So I'd like to think that he'll be aware of the challenges ahead. But until you experience it, it's not easy. But I think that he's a slow burner, and if he can he can drop that clutch at the right time, and he doesn't have any pressure on himself, he doesn't put too much pressure on himself, then I wish him all the very best.
Tell us about that mindset, the difference between regular league racing and a big world event. Obviously, the Grand Prix series was sort of after your era in World Speedway. It was the one-off World Finals, but you found yourself in World Finals, Kelv. What's the difference to those occasions in the mindset? Because you're up against the very best there is. All the eyes are on you. You've probably got a bigger crowd than you used to riding in front of at many of these occasions as well. What is that difference between, you know, a regular league meeting and apart from it being obviously a special occasion, but when it comes to the mindset of moving into that match?
Well, you're racing for the ultimate prize, And as I say, you've pointed out there are bigger crowds, there are bigger occasions, the best riders in the world everywhere. When you look at the program, you might not want to look at it too long because every race looks very hard. It's managing mentally to be able to keep it on a level where it doesn't grow too big in your mind and it overwhelms you. You need to be able to relish the challenge of a world championship and not feel that you're daunted by it. And that is tough, particularly when things aren't going well. As I say, I mentioned it with Kim Nilsen. I think it applies to all the riders coming into the Grand Prix about, even with an experienced rider like Jason Doyle, I think at times he's felt that the Grand Prix just sort of got on top of him and it's weighed heavy on his shoulders. And I think keeping it light, keeping a sense of balance with it and perspective with it is hugely important. And then being able to perform in those environments, Ian, then becomes hugely satisfying. It becomes so rewarding. And if you leave a Grand Prix having won or done well, I mean, the boost in you, that sort of good feel factor is huge, and you need to feed off that as much as you can.
Let's have a look at a couple of riders then that we haven't touched on so far. Anders Thompson was going great guns up until, of course, he sustained a serious injury, which really put paid to his season. But quite a fun character as well. We need characters in Speedway. Sometimes Speedway riders are dubbed as too serious and too boring, but if you're celebrating winning a Grand Prix, riding around in your underpants, I mean, surely that's old school, isn't it, Kelv?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's Barry Briggs back at Plough Lane riding around with nothing on, just a pair of boots and a helmet. It was proper. It was a proper moment. I was surprised, actually, in this corporate world we live in now, that he got away with it. But it was extraordinary scenes, and clearly he was overjoyed with the win in Gorzow, and he fully deserved it. Nasty injury, really nasty injury. Saw him in Voyens, and he was struggling. But he's back. If he's fully healed mentally, if he can get over that and get some confidence in, I think the beginning of the season for him will be very important. The Grand Prix campaign, very important for him to be able to get off to a decent start and build back from such a nasty break. I know I broke my thigh quite badly in my career, and it took me a little while to get that real confidence back on track, to overtake, to really push it. He looks supremely fit, very dedicated. You're right, he's quite a character. He's a smiley, happy chappy, isn't he? He's got a very engaging sort of character. So he's a plus for the Grand Prix series. So I'm sure he's done everything he possibly can to be in great shape for the end of next week. And I'm sure that Nicky Pedersen, the Danish team manager, will be hoping that his Anders Thompson is firing on all cylinders in Croatia.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of other riders we haven't touched on really, but just worth just a quick word, I suppose. Maciej Janowski, another Pole, of course, been working very hard with Red Bull, he's been to their training camp for their elite sportsman. He's learnt a lot about his body, and so he's more scientific about his approach this year. Patrick Dudek, of course, another rider who was close on a medal this last year and just fell slightly short, and another rider who, again, has got the potential to do it. Consistency may be the thing, but a couple of names not to rule out.
Absolutely not. Dudek and Maciej Janowski could well be part of the Speedway World Cup team for Poland, who will be red-hot favourites for that in Wrocław. But there's no doubt that Maciej Janowski is a supremely gifted rider. He has led the World Championship on more than one occasion. He's won Grand Prix on a regular basis, but comes up short. I think there's mentally a lack of belief at times. I think he just sort of runs out of belief and can go through some disappointing grounds. I hope that maybe going to the Red Bull facilities that they have maybe pinpointed a way of being able to deal with that better, because there's no doubt, Ian, that he has the ability to win a world championship. He had everything in his corner last year. He had Greg Hancock with him, he had a super team, but it just doesn't, there seems to be something slightly lacking at times, and I think it's upstairs. I think it's just He gets to a point where maybe he just doubts himself. If you can overcome that, then he'll push hard for a championship because he's as fast as Smarzlik. Patrick Dudek I like Patrick. He's such a strange guy, diminutive. I remember I spoke to him in Prague last year, and it was really funny. We were just having lunch after the qualifying, and I said, "Hey, getting on? Oh, Speedway. Oh, it's so hard. I have so many problems with my bikes. I don't know what to do. It's so different now." And then he went to probably the most challenging track we saw last year in Tetero, which was like a bomb site because the track hadn't been used for 2 years, and he won. And from then it was like, wow, where did that come from? So Patrick is a character, and as I say, both him and Maciej Janowski, you can't discount. Quality riders, very highly talented, and I'm looking forward to seeing them once again in Croatia, definitely.
I'm looking down the list of riders. I think we've talked about all of them, bar two, and one would be Mikkel Mikkelsen. We've not mentioned him yet, and the other will be Martin Vasilik, who is back in the lineup once again, and he really can't put his finger on why 2022 was so good, but the fact he's riding relaxed again, enjoying his speedway, and again looking to kick on through the course of the campaign coming up in 2023.
Martin Vasilik, injury cost him, didn't it? Missed a Grand Prix, won a Grand Prix. If you can stay out of trouble, like Martin Vasilik, very professional, super nice guy. On his night, he can beat anybody. Fantastic starter. If he hits the front, supremely fast. Got to stay out of trouble. With the experience he's got, he knows what it takes. He can raise his game. Mikkel Mikkelsen, European champion, a couple of times, beginning to get better. Can make the odd mistake. Also had some injury problems last year. If he stays out of trouble, I can see Mikkelsen along with Madsen having a really good campaign. He's fast, very fit, focused. And then the one person we haven't really spoken about enough, actually, Ian, and we've got to talk about is Freddie Lindgren. Freddie Lindgren has had 2 really difficult years. Understated rider. He's had long COVID. He had to take a break from racing last year. Felt for Freddie. I think nobody really fully appreciates how hard it's been for him to compete over the last 2 years. Great to see him in the UK early season doing some testimonial and some open meetings. That suggests to me, Ian, that maybe he's just shaken this COVID business off. If he's fit, healthy, Freddie Lindgren is going to be a guy that could potentially be in the top 3 in the World Championship again. He knows how to win, supremely fit guy, and as I say, after 2 difficult years, you don't know, that might just give him a springboard to really kick on. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. But all in all, I'd like to think that we've looked at the Grand Prix, and if we've got guys firing on all cylinders at times, I think we could be in for a really good season.
Yeah, on the subject of Freddie Lindgren, I think he only ended up riding 1 or 2 meetings in the end. He had a packed calendar, but the weather put paid to a lot of it. I did see him race, though, in Sam Masters' testimonial at Wolves, and it took him maybe a heat or so to get things under control. But once he got it nailed, he was away. He's also been working on his mental empowerment. Is something he's been spending a lot of time doing in Sweden. And here he is talking about that and how he thinks it's going to help him.
Really good. I've been working with a new person, and the main focus for me is to feel good. Really, and it's not really working in the mental aspect. It's more to work with your emotions, which is something totally different and new. So it's not very easy. It takes a lot of work, and doing a lot of training with this. So, but so far the decision has been really good. The outcome has been very good, and I'm gonna continue to work with this guy for a longer period of time, and hopefully it will continue to be good for me.
So we know that he's supremely fit physically, but he's working on his mental fitness and getting his head state right, which that's a big part of Speedway, isn't it, Kelvin?
Oh, it's huge. You know, when you look at the time differences between winning and losing in a speedway race, which is approximately 1 minute in time, I mean, fine margins, Ian, very fine margins. So yeah, any way of being able to maximise your potential has got to be looked upon. I think that sports psychology is something that a sport like golf actually embraced a long time ago, and I think that other sports and other sportsmen, certainly in my era, I think we almost frowned upon it. It almost seemed like it was a weakness. Actually now I think it's becoming much more accepted, and I think as long as you find the right partnership, it's a bit like a rider with his engine tuner. If you find that chemistry between the two people working and they can really bounce off each other, I think that could provide some really positive results. Time will tell, and we will watch with interest to see how Freddie comes back out this year. But for me, I'm interested in that. But for me, more importantly, I think the fact is if he's healthy, I think that's to me the most important issue for him.
Yeah, certainly sounds like he's back to full fitness. Or certainly he said that when we were with him in Wolverhampton for the Sam Masters testimonial, and he certainly looked fit as well. So looking forward to seeing him in business. So this is the calendar then. 29th of April, Croatia in round 1. Round 2 will be in Warsaw in Poland, May the 13th. Prague is on the 3rd of June for round 3. Round 4 back at Tetrov in Germany for June 10th. 24th of June, Gorzów, round 5. Melilla in Sweden is the 15th of July. That's round 6. Round 7 in Riga, Latvia on the 12th of August. British Grand Prix at Cardiff, 2nd of September for round 8. And then just round 9 after that in Vojens, Denmark, 16th of September. And then it all ends on the 30th of September in Torun in round 10. Well, that's the final round. It may be sorted before then. We don't know, but a great place for things to wrap up. So that's the Speedway Grand Prix series, and Kelvin will be bringing you that excitement wherever you are, I think, on the world feed, certainly on Discovery Plus, Eurosport in the UK as well, and many other outlets around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tap into the Speedway Grand Prix in many different ways now, far more than I can understand, to be perfectly honest, being rather an analogue sort of guy. But there's no doubt that you can certainly tap into it. And it's one of those, and I think the championship, after, there's no doubt losing 2 of the top 3 in the world for 2022 was a blow, and it was nobody's fault apart from Mr. Putin's. But now I think it's settled down. I'm chuffed to bits that Laguta and Saifutinov are racing again in the leagues. That's smashing. They got their jobs back. That's good to see. But this campaign, this lineup, I think has the potential to be a really strong campaign, and I'm excited for it. And as I say, I can't wait to get out to Croatia in a couple of weeks to start waxing lyrical about something I genuinely enjoy.
Absolutely, bring it on. We're looking forward to seeing you back on the telly very, very soon. During the course of recording our chat today, there is some breaking news from the world of Speedway. So just to get your take on this, and the news is that basically Wolves are going to be racing their last season. Monmore is the Greyhounds at Monmore are turfing them out, basically. There's a new Greyhound Racing League coming in, which is going to be on 6 nights a week, and so Speedway is being served notice at Monmore Stadium. And obviously, at this moment in time, there's no further information other than that. But obviously, Monmore been a huge venue for Speedway, hosting some of the biggest events, and this will be the final season.
Well, that's desperate news. We've lost quite a few tracks in recent years, particularly in the southeast. There's no doubt that Monmore Green has been a stalwart. It's been a strong club with Chris Van Straten and Pete Adams. Well, Pete Adams actually got it going again in about 1984, and Van Straten has been there since then. I'm surprised that we haven't heard any whispers about that. I'm not sure. I certainly haven't heard anything about that leading up to it. So yeah, I just hope that the club can be relocated. I know it will be very difficult to do so. But my immediate reaction to that, Ian, is I'm desperately disappointed for all concerned. There's no doubt that the fans there's a strong following for Monmore. They've held British championships. They've had riders like Ermolenko there, a world champion, Peter Carlson, Freddie Lindgren, Tai Woffinden. You know, they've had a rich history. They've won titles. They've got a legendary team manager in Pete Adams. That's desperately sad news. That is really sad.
And also news as well that it looks like Peterborough are into their final season as well, as certainly as things stand, with threat of development at the showground as well. So looking here at this moment in time of two Premiership clubs, two former title winning clubs as well, going by the wayside at the end of this season.
Yeah, and that will put, which is disappointing, absolutely. But circumstances, and we're a small country, we have a lot of people here, redevelopment, circumstances changing. Speedway is not as strong as it once was. It doesn't generate the income for landlords that it might have done before. The showground is obvious, like the showground. I mean, the houses get closer every year. But I can only assume that the BSPL and the BSP and the two leagues are going to have to look very closely at either amalgamating or there's got to be a way of enticing other teams back in. Poole is obviously an obvious one. Glasgow, another one. Strong teams in the championship that may need to come in to replace teams that we lose. So not ideal, far from ideal, but British Speedway, it always astounds me. It has lots of disappointments and it seems to sort of drift along at times, but it's unbelievably resilient. Look at the riders that were actually signed to ride in this year. You've got Ipswich Witches with Jason Doyle and Cy Futenhoff in it. And it's Max Frick is here, and I think that, Dan Bewley back in the league. It's far from all doom and gloom, but losing clubs is obviously quite clearly a serious concern.
And it comes down to not really owning the stadiums, doesn't it? And these clubs that are finding life hard are the ones that are tenants, that now it seems there's a new Premier League of greyhound racing. Greyhound racing's had some serious investment from elsewhere in the world, and of course, for the greyhounds, as Speedway would do, if it was the boot was on the other foot, they're saying, yeah, we want to be part of this big Premier League. We want to do more greyhound racing. See you later, Speedway. We don't need you anymore. And so it's the clubs that own their own tracks. They're the only ones that are really in charge of their destiny, and it's not an easy thing to sort out. Obviously, Workington are a club who have built their own track. Glasgow own their own. Redcar own their own. But while ever tracks are at the whim of other landlords, if you like, it's going to be difficult, isn't it, and unpredictable.
Yeah, and circumstances change quite quickly, and it's there aren't that many. Kings Lynn obviously is privately owned. And you've got to say that, Speedway has been in these older stadia for a long time. There's, a shift with the investment into greyhound racing, which I was unaware of, actually. I must say, I don't follow greyhound racing. It doesn't interest me. But the fact is that it certainly has had a major impact at Monmore Green, and a negative one for the Speedway team. So, it'll be very interesting. We'll watch that closely to see if there is any opportunities for them to move to another stadium or to race elsewhere. But it would suggest to me that there's going to have to be some hard work done to actually entice teams into the Premiership out of the Championship. We shall wait and see. But the landscape is moving, ever changing, and Speedway is not quite as strong on the ground as it once was. So. Let's keep our fingers crossed we don't lose any more.
Okay, well, been great speaking with you once again, Kelvin, and we'll catch up again very soon. I'm sure once the Grand Prix gets up and running, and you'll be on your adventures very soon to Croatia, and then it's Warsaw, and great to have the season back for you, I'm sure, packing your bags and heading off once again.
Yeah, it's been a long wait, actually. I've been quite envious of you, Ian, because you've been involved. You've had some shale under your shoes, haven't you? and I haven't been involved
Yeah,
yet.
six meetings in now.
That's right. I mean, you're almost burnt out by the time I turn up. No, it's unusual to be starting quite this late. But no, I'm sure once we get up and running, it'll be good. And in some ways, I haven't envied you in actual fact, because it's been pretty grotty, the weather through March, that's for sure. Let's hope that we have a good campaign. And yes, people will hear from us through the year at certain points, opportunities when we've got plenty to say. So looking forward to it all.
Good stuff. Watch this space. Thanks a lot, Kelvin. And don't forget, check out previous episodes, the British Speedway preview, and you can see if Kelvin's prophecies are coming true at various points through the course of the season. That's the previous episode to this. And we've also had a chat with Dan Bewley last season after his win at Cardiff as well. So look out for those previous episodes, and like and subscribe the podcast for more. And we'll be back with another episode very soon. But subscribe and you won't miss it when it arrives.